The boy lay strapped to his bed while Foundation personnel watched from behind the one-way mirror. The boy had been unconscious for the number of years he had been contained under the SCP Foundation. There had been no signs of consciousness in this time. That is, until now. Suddenly, the boy's eyes flicked open. Nearby researchers jumped out of their skin with shock. Simultaneously, halfway across the globe, an asteroid came flying towards Russia, hurling towards the planet at 60,000 kilometers an hour. It struck the Earth's atmosphere, sending a shockwave that injured over 1,000 people. Back in the Foundation facility, the boy shut his eyes again, and readings from incoming asteroids ceased as the boy slipped back into unconsciousness. An X-class end-of-the-world scenario had been avoided, for the time being. Welcome back to SCP Exposed. Today, we bring you Euclid Class Object SCP-515, also known as the Sleeper. 515 is a 14-year-old Caucasian male. When the Foundation personnel first discovered 515 in this form, he was unconscious and had reportedly been in a coma for a few months. His parents, if any, are unknown, and it seems he had suddenly appeared on the face of the Earth without any traces of origin. SCP-515 was immediately transported to Site-29 to a secure holding facility. 515 is now in Site-29, guarded by 3 levels of security, and is restrained with Level 8 barriers, preventing movement in his limbs. To avoid an X-class event, the boy's limbs and bones have been broken to prevent further movement, except for his neck, as this would result in a fatality that would increase the chances of an X-class event. SCP-515 is classed as highly dangerous. Whenever 515 moves in any capacity, a collection of asteroids move as well. The estimated 19 objects of SCP-515-01 vary in diameter from 1.5 kilometers to 33.6 kilometers. The largest of these is roughly 133% the size of the object that caused the Vrader 4 impact crater in Free State, South Africa. Regardless of the direction of SCP-515's motion, SCP-515-1 only ever moves toward Earth. A twitch of a finger or toe typically corresponds to a movement of about 140 kilometers. Movement of a limb indicates motion of 515-1 on the scale of 460 kilometers or more. Sustained motion, such as sleepwalking, has been demonstrated to correlate with the objects traveling toward Earth at velocities reaching 280,000 kilometers per hour. The rise and fall of 515's chest unfortunately must not be stopped, and according to Foundation satellites corresponds with a movement in the celestial objects to a degree of 10 kilometers per respiratory cycle. If this collection of asteroids were to make impact with Earth's atmosphere, they would immediately trigger an X-class catastrophe that would result in the loss of 95% of all life on Earth. On several occasions, SCP-515 has managed to free himself of his restraints, despite no outside assistance, nor any physical movement from 515 himself. The restraints simply come undone, as if it were the work of invisible hands, although sensors did not detect any presence in 515's room. The young boy would then proceed to step off from his bed and walk across the room, eyes still shut as he is merely sleepwalking. Of course, this only lasts a few seconds before Foundation agents burst into the room and restrain 515 once again. They must break his bones, which seem to have healed miraculously in a short time period, and bind him to the bed once again. Throughout his whole time, SCP-515 continues to remain unconscious. It is important that SCP-515 be kept entirely constrained to his sleeping quarters to the point of near total immobility. If 515's enclosure is seen to be empty, top priority must be placed on immediate recapture. Locomotion or simple twitch response behavior exhibited by 515 is to be noted and reported to research and emergency staff. If SCP-515's legs or arms are in working order, they must be broken immediately to minimize his sleepwalking speed in the event of escape. The neck, however, cannot be broken due to the risk of death. Instead, it must be held immobile by a brace covering up to the chin and down to the shoulders. Amputation and severing the motor nerves of the limbs are also not recommended, due to similar risks, and all muscle relaxants tested thus far have resulted in convulsive reactions and as such should not be administered. Restraints are not to be unfastened at any time for any reason, and the room is not to be opened for anything but standard research purposes unless emergency conditions require it. Maintenance crews in D-Class are also to be kept away from the enclosure unless otherwise noted. General 05-LT has forbidden the termination of SCP-515 on the grounds of what took place in Event 515-09 in August of 2001. On this day, there had been reports of activity in a collection of asteroids located several million kilometers away. Note, this was before SCP-515 had been discovered by the Foundation. Fortunately, Foundation personnel were able to track down the source to an old woman in Guatemala. They located her in her small home on the outskirts of a nearby village. She was unconscious and none of her neighbors recognized her. The woman was brought back to the SCP Foundation headquarters and restrained. Scientists were able to discern that the woman's movement correlated to the movement of the collection of asteroids. The woman was then categorized as SCP-515, and the collection of asteroids were dubbed SCP-515-01. Whenever the woman moved, 515-01 moved accordingly, making their way closer and closer to Earth. To prevent an X-class event, the woman's bones were then broken. This seemed to cease the journey of 515-01. Then, the head general at the time passed an order to terminate the woman's life in order to remove the SCP-515 X-class event as a possibility. The woman was terminated, and it seemed all was well. For several months, nothing happened. No movement was recorded in 515-01, and Foundation personnel passed the case on as complete. However, in July of 2002, further activity was found in the asteroids. That is when Foundation personnel located the body of what is currently SCP-515, the 14-year-old boy who now resides in Site-29. The same patterns were found in this young boy as the deceased woman from Guatemala. It seems apparent that 515 possesses a reincarnation ability, which removes the solution of terminating the body of 515. The body must therefore remain alive and restrained. To this date, this is the best method Foundation personnel have devised in order to limit the X-class event that could be caused by 515. If the young boy were killed, this would result in a reincarnation in a separate body, which would be very difficult and time-consuming for agents to locate and recover. For the entire duration of containment, the young boy has ingested no food or water and has passed no waste. What has kept him alive for so long is still unknown. Even asleep, SCP-515 has been known to speak on rare occasions. Little of what is said is intelligible, and that which can be heard is typically incoherent, similar to the speech of a person who is incredibly sick. Portions have been recorded for future research. No noticeable difference in the movement of SCP-515-1 has been noted during these periods. The following is a recording of SCP-515's speech. December 26, 2005.
The vessel cannot view the incomprehensible. It simply moves in time with the sea.
April 13, 2009.
There are more. There are always more.
Repeated for several minutes. August 6, 2015.
Can you see where I am? Can you breathe? Can you move?
These were the only intelligible recordings of SCP-515's speech. Others are far too jumbled and low volume to understand. Now, it is understood that SCP-515 has not been conscious for some time, but that period of unconsciousness ceased for a few seconds on the 15th of February 2013. Scientists were sitting in their usual spot behind the one-way mirror, observing 515. His vitals were normal. His heart rate was normal. However, out of nowhere, 515's eyes opened. His vitals underwent a great deviation in readings, and it seemed everything was out of balance. Scientists rushed into the room to alleviate the problem and calm SCP-515 down with sedation. It is noted that 515's eyes are blue, which was not known before. Despite being treated with heavy sedation, SCP-515 continued to open his eyes. Security footage shows that 515 did not move at all. His eyeballs did not move either. The only noticeable movement was his eyelids, which blinked a total of 3 times. Halfway across the globe, Russia was immediately hit by an asteroid. This is widely known as the Chelyabinsk meteor, although Foundation personnel recognize this as a reaction of SCP-515's movement. The Chelyabinsk meteor was a superbolide that entered Earth's atmosphere over Russia on 15 February 2013 at about 9:20 local time. The light from the meteor was brighter than the sun, visible up to 100 kilometers away. Some locals reported feeling a blast of heat from the asteroid. The asteroid plummeted towards Russia, breaking Earth's atmosphere at a speed of 60,000 kilometers an hour. Due to its high velocity and shallow angle of atmospheric entry, The object exploded in an airburst over Chelyabinsk Oblast at a height of around 29.7 kilometers. The resultant debris plummeled to the ground, causing a shockwave to spread in a 100-kilometer wide radius. Over 1,000 people were injured, although not from the actual meteor itself. They were injured mainly by broken glass that shattered as a result of the shockwave. The Chelyabinsk meteor is the largest known natural object to have entered Earth's atmosphere since the 1908 Tunguska event, and is also the only meteor confirmed to have resulted in many injuries. Back at SCP-515's quarters, an added amount of sedation was injected into 515, and eventually scientists managed to force the boy back into unconsciousness. The frantic movement of SCP-515's linked asteroids ceased, and an X-class event was narrowly avoided. Foundation personnel are still trying to figure out a way to terminate the threat SCP-515 poses to humanity's survival. Each breath of 515 results in a movement of 10 kilometers of SCP-515-01. A possible impact with Earth could be inevitable. Researchers are currently considering a possibility of destroying 515-01, although research is ongoing and in beta stage. What do you think of that SCP case? Comment your thoughts below and be sure to subscribe and give this video a huge thumbs up. Hit that notification bell too so you don't miss out on any more creepy SCP cases.